and welcome to Conversations in Cleantech, a podcast that celebrates the clean tech industry and the people that power it. Brought to you by Brightsmith. We're your hosts. I'm Jenny Gladman.
And I'm Ben Sparks. And in this 5th season, we're interviewing leaders, forward thinkers and entrepreneurs from around the world to talk all things clean tech and clean tech careers.
From the opportunities and challenges of working in clean tech, to tips to get into the industry, and why it's so rewarding to work in. We'll be hearing from a series of individuals, all with very different backgrounds, to discover how they forged their clean tech career and are fueling a cleaner, greener future. In addition, they'll be offering you some tokens of wisdom to enlighten, engage, and inspire everyone to live their purpose every single day. Today's guest has had a really fascinating career. I was thrilled when she was introduced to me as a potential guest, and even more thrilled when we'd had an initial conversation about what her career looked like, and the value that she can add to people out there contemplating their own career decisions at the moment. So it's a great pleasure to welcome today's guest. It's Ellen Kugelberg. She's the Chief Product Officer and former COO of Einride. For those of you who are not familiar with Einride, she's going to tell you much more about it later. But in short, they are an industry-disrupting freight technology company who are providing end-to-end solutions for electric and autonomous shipping. Whew, long sentence. So, Ellen, welcome to Conversations in Clean Tech, and I'll pass it over to you to give a bit of an introduction as to who you are.
Thank you so much, and so happy to be here. I'm originally born and raised in Sweden, and started my career, my education as an engineer, went into consulting, and then has transitioned through different companies, but always with a passion for how to leverage data for sort of intelligent business decision making, and kind of improving things, to put it simply. I have 2 kids and a family here in Stockholm. Love skiing, food, and having a lot of time with friends and family, to sort of simply put.
And you touched on it there, your background in engineering, and I know that you had a very strong academic background in that, but it actually led you, as you said, into consulting, which is probably not the obvious choice for most people in engineering. So what did that look like, and how did it actually take you into consulting and joining McKinsey?
Sure. So I think I really enjoyed engineering subjects, and I kind of had part-time jobs as sort of a programmer, and really enjoyed that as well. During my master thesis, I was offered to also continue and do a PhD and continue on that path. And I loved the discussions I had with my professors and the type of complex solution or complex question you were kind of discussing. However, it was way too lonely for me. I really enjoyed working together with people and solving problems together, but constantly sort of challenging myself in that. And when I was introduced to consulting and the opportunities there, I felt that it was also these very complex problems spanning across very different areas, and working together to solve problems with a lot of other smart people. So I really, really enjoyed consulting and really this continuous challenge and very different type of challenges in each single project. And I always kept kind of the core where I came from, where I was a bit specialized into sort of digitalization and business technology, as it was called. So I still have had that foundation and leveraged in the work, but working and solving real world kind of challenges here and now in different companies.
And I think that background and foray into consulting often really sets people up for those internal challenges in industry. The thought process of how you go about solving a problem is one that the consultancies teach in a fairly unique way.
Absolutely. It's a good toolbox.
Oh, definitely. And you mentioned there that kind of thread throughout your career, the data-driven sort of using data to make intelligent decisions. How did that then lead into your next move into Telenor?
Absolutely. So after having been around 5 years at McKinsey and traveling a lot, I got the opportunity to work with a telecom operator in Sweden. And in Sweden, they're a disruptor and really wanted to kind of gain market share and be quite aggressive, sitting on a huge amount of data, but without really using it. So it was during an important phase of the company and being able to really see how can we do things smarter and better that really generates value for the company. And it was sort of very concretely going into sort of how do we subsidize phones and where do we put our money in our business and changing the structure for that. So it was really sort of connecting the leverage of data, understanding what customers valued, and ensuring that we combine that in a way that really makes it profitable for a company.
Great. So the next career move you made is probably the most unexpected one when I read through your CV, and an amazing one and one that's very purpose driven. So can you tell us about first of all, how that came about? Because it certainly wouldn't be an obvious move, and why that was so important to you in your life.
Absolutely. So I was working at Telenor, having a large team and a large P&L, and I thought I kind of had a very straight and clear career path. Then I was approached by a headhunter that asked me if I wanted to start a non-profit foundation, sort of aiming at children's reading ability. And it was so completely out of the blue that I was super intrigued. And in the day of the day, I decided to jump on this opportunity because I got the chance to work directly with Bertel Halt, who's one of the great Swedish entrepreneurs that have founded a company called Education First, a large global educational company. And he wanted to make a real difference into children's life and then sort of giving all of children the same sort of prerequisites of being able to create a good life for themselves. And him being dyslexic, he really saw the challenge if you don't have the tool of reading and how that prevents you from being able to chase your dreams. So he wanted to make sure that he could have a real impact into how many children that actually learn to read. So I was offered the position and sort of jumped at the opportunity to kind of really think through and problem solve how can a non-profit foundation have an impact and really change how many kids learn to read, and realizing that it needs to be done through the teachers in the society, but really supporting great tools and support for the teachers in their daily life, and started a foundation called Legilexi, where we developed digital tools to sort of break down the ability to read into different sub-abilities, and sort of through testing and connecting the results of the students, kind of bring performance management into the hands of teachers for free. And when I mean performance management, is really about really to leverage digital tools into sort of formative learning. How can you help a teacher to know where do I need to support my students more? Where do I need to improve as a teacher or try different exercises, etc. So it's really about sort of empowering the teachers with the knowledge of where different students are and how they can sort of bridge gaps of knowledge and abilities. And it's being used by thousands of teachers in Sweden today. And it also set me on a journey kind of mentally of what do I value and what do I want to leverage my own time in this life and my abilities into really realizing I'm very values driven and want to make sure that what I spend my time doing is really improving things, and I want to leave some sort of positive mark.
And I guess that brings us perfectly to the present day and to Einride. And I gave the one-liner, but I think it would be great for our listeners to hear more about what the business does, what it stands for, the elevator pitch, if you will, and then that will lead us into the conversation, which goes full circle back to disruption.
Absolutely. So first of all, after having done a couple of other things in my career, I realized I really wanted to bring together working with a team that all wants to create a change, working on something that I truly believe can have a positive impact in this world, and making sure that I also feel I leverage my passions and my abilities into kind of digitalization and really doing something positive, sort of several different dimensions. And I'm coming back to what I see that is. And I really found that in Einride. Einride is a company with a vision of truly disrupting the transport industry. The transport industry today is dirty, a lot of safety or safety issues for people in and around the industry, and a very low efficiency. So a lot of things can be improved, both for the people and the business in this industry. So a lot of possibilities for digitalization, but also it's an industry that haven't had a lot of large transformations. However, now 3 different key transformations is coming to the industry. It's digitalization, it's electrification, and it's automation. And really sort of thinking through how will these different technology trends affect the industry, and how do we make sure we can leverage the positive benefits of these 3 different technology trends? Because if you only try to sort of shoehorn in technology, that's not when you get the most benefit of them. So Einride is all about sort of assuming that all these 3 trends will happen, and doing so already 6-7 years ago, saying how would actually the new ecosystems look, and how can we build up an ecosystem and a business that accelerates the transition and sort of reaps the benefit for all the players in the ecosystem of these sort of technology shifts. Because it's very difficult to go electric without digitalization. Because in order to be able to do electric in a cost-efficient way, you need to plan much more into detail than if you do diesel, because of the charging and because of the range. So really sort of bundling these in an assumption has been able to us to kind of speed ahead and create the software solutions that's needed to really be able to accommodate for the changes that needs to happen in this industry. And hence being able to offer our customers already today the solutions that many of the industries says that this will happen in 5 to 10 years from now, because we see that it can be done now. We can do electric freight cost efficient today because of the software and the planning. And because we already now think about things being more automated in the future, we can also actually improve a lot of the things in the industry today that's been built up around a certain way of operating that is more or less the same way that's been sort of evolved in the last 100 years. So Einride, just to summarize, is kind of a freight mobility company. So we developed the technologies, kind of overall software. How do we actually bind this all together and plan and operate it in an efficient way? And how do we enable the shippers to start this journey now? And then we also sort of have deep expertise and develop technologies around the electric trucks, the charging, as well as the sort of automation, sort of autonomous trucks. Still maybe a bit complex because you cannot just fit us in a box in the industry today, and that always makes it difficult because we do see a need for some of the ecosystem to change. So we're not kind of easy to kind of just put in a box, but I think that's also what makes it the more exciting.
Definitely, and I think in the jobs that you've had there, that's what's more exciting than a huge challenge. And I think there's no greater challenge than when actually all of the external factors need to change for your internal factors to work. And you touched on a great point there that you can't make fundamental shifts, and you can't be a disruptor if you expect everything else to stay the same. So people's expectations need to not be that of what it would be with diesel or with petrol. It needs to be totally different. And I think that's where, it's such a huge challenge. And thinking about your career specifically, that's what I'd really love to explore. You went in there as a COO, managed to get yourself back to a very small team of people, and then lo and behold, you have a gigantic team again. So can you talk us through what that's looked like and why again you've grabbed the opportunity?
Sure. So, when I took this move, I left the education first as a CIO, having a 200 plus team, and working across many geographies, and decided to move back to Sweden because I was living in Switzerland at the time, which was a family decision to move back, and feeling that I wanted to go on this sort of, I didn't want to go to one of the large companies in sort of existing industries, but I really wanted to sort of join a journey and test kind of a startup scale up type of company. Came to Einride when we were about 70 people, SEO, as you mentioned, with a kind of 4 people team and building up our electric freight operations. And I led kind of a large organization, and I was so thrilled about the opportunity of really building something from scratch again, like I had done when I did the foundation. Really being part of not only maintaining and taking something over and just doing transformations of things, but truly building a company, being part of building a company and building my teams and recruiting a lot of great people and sort of being a team in solving huge and difficult challenges that there's no sort of right answer on. So that was super exciting. And I really liked that. I had been kind of internal IT primarily and internal systems. Loved getting into much more sort of customer, getting close to the customer, building up operations, figuring out what is really truly important for our customers when transitioning to electric. We want to be this sort of one-stop shop when we solve all of the challenges and lowering that barrier for changing. So really sort of being in close dialogue with customers, I think was super interesting and useful. After having done so a year and a half and building up that organization, I got the opportunity to step into the role as CPO, and being responsible for all of our product and technology development, as well as manufacturing, as we have for our autonomous vehicles. A great challenge. I took over a team of about 100 at that time, and in 6 months we grew to more than 200. So I'm back to kind of the size of teams I had before joining Einride, but during those sort of a little bit more than 2 years, it was a super exciting journey of both being part of building this company, building my teams, really solving what is it that we need to do, what is it that we need to prioritize, and working very closely with product development and sort of seeing, we want to be a very sort of customer value driven product organization. And that's a lot why I got the chance to enter this role, because we don't want to develop technology for the sake of technology. We want to develop technology and products to really shape the industry for the value of the customers. So both being close to the customer and understanding what they know they want, but also thinking through the overall structures of the ecosystem and generating that true value that will come by being able to consolidate part of the market and being able to get utilizations much higher, which means lower cost for the customer in the end. So lower customer, of course, more predictability and service quality. So really still playing on the fundamentals of the industry and what the customer wants, but being able through this transformation and modernizations to do it much better.
And I think that leads into the back to our original topic of careers, but maybe less so your career and also those people that you're managing to impact their careers, giving them an opportunity to be a part of this. Because it's fairly unique to be in a situation where your landscape is entirely new. It's not just new because you're a new company, it's new because nobody's done this before. And I think for all of those people that get to work for you in that 200 plus team, like each one of those gets that new experience. So how does it feel building that team, but also how do you go about building the right team?
Super exciting. I think this is one of the why I'm loving this job and why I think it's so exciting daily, because in order to be able to do what we want to achieve, we need to combine all different type of competences. And as you said, we need to solve problems that haven't been solved before. And I think it's definitely challenging, right? Because the more you mix people from diverse backgrounds, the more conflict it can also create. But I think that's also where the magic happens. So really being able to bring people in from the OEM or the sort of the truck manufacturing companies, from the sort of Klarna and Spotify's of this world, from the transport industry, from transport software industry, and other kind of industries where digitalization has been very successful, and bringing all these different competences together to create something new is truly exciting, but it doesn't come without friction. But I think, we can't be afraid of that friction, because that is what's going to lead us to these type of solutions that is truly going to add most value. So I think it's part of the most exciting, and doing so many different interviews with people from very diverse backgrounds, and finding these great talents all around is, so rewarding, even personally. And to be able to see how, someone coming in from one perspective and learning so much from others people in the team, yeah, that is magic, and really, really exciting. And I think for people that go through that as well, it's very rewarding. And I think where we currently are, we just came really high on this list of where talents want to go, and these kind of things, and we've made ourselves a brand name in that aspect, because it is a truly exciting environment to be in that combination of competences and talents. So definitely that's also a strength that you have as a disruptor, that it also attracts people that want to disrupt, want to innovate, and want to be part of this type of journey.
And talking about the disruption, how does that work? You're looking at public authorities to work with them to get approvals for things that have never been approved before. Like, how do you even start?
It's a very good it's a good question. It's a learning journey for all of us, and it's an educational journey for all of us as well. And I think the type of collaboration that we have with many of the authorities is extremely valuable for both them and us. As you say, they want to give us permits for things that have never been given permits or approvals for, and it is very difficult to come up to when is things safe enough, or how do we need to set the sort of frames, or within what scope things are allowed to be done, etc. I think this can only be done in the way we're doing now, which is a very collaborative way. And of course, we always have to ensure that we don't sort of test and fail, but rather we are very cautious and work together on defining and continuously sort of improving the level of detail of what's needed, etc. But to your point, it is a learning journey for everyone, and the best way of doing it is working close together. And I think the type of relationships that we have with the authorities in many of the markets that we are, it's clear that they acknowledge the same thing, and that we can only do this in collaboration, which I think is very, very useful, and sort of that's the way forward. So we really appreciate that type of collaboration.
Nice. And I think something that's always fascinating from an outside perspective, and it's something we get asked a lot in terms of what questions should we be asking on the podcast, is about investment and funding and going through those rounds. That's been something that's been hugely successful. Can you tell us a bit about that journey? The go down the bad bits of it.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, I think for me personally, it's been very exciting. That's part of this job that I had never worked in that type of context before. So I've learned a lot working with that. I think it also very valuable as a kind of executive in a company to have this discussion with investors and potential investors, to hear the type of questions they're asking, how they are evaluating things, and what they also say from their perspectives in what way we're differentiating, etc. So I think it does add a sort of strategic perspective, and it challenges you to really formulate, the uniquenesses and this kind of thing on a kind of continuous basis, which is very valuable. It's also super tough, as you mentioned. It's like it requires a lot of time. Like it does pull both me and especially the founders and kind of part of the management team to a lot of external focus. As I said, some of that is very valuable because it does, keep us grounded all the time by really reiterating what's unique and making sure that is also, the prioritizations we're doing internally. But it also removes a lot of time from working with the teams. And I think that is a constant struggle. It's a struggle for me personally, where I feel, the more I'm away and doing all these investor things, the less I'm with my teams. So I think that is a balance that's difficult to strike, but I definitely see a value of it as well, and a value both for the investors and myself in having that dialogue, and not only sort of diverting that to the CEO, or in our case the founders. So like there's both a good and bad with that, but it definitely forces you to think a lot about the strategic questions, and you kind of have to internalize a lot of that, and formulate also as it changes and moves. Like if I look at sort of some of our core messages and things that we said when I joined versus now, we have developed so much, right? And we have learned so much. And by constantly having to reformulate to investors, is a very useful exercise. But it's a challenge. It takes a lot of time. I think the time aspect is always when it comes down to it, the stuff that's difficult to manage.
And I think it's one of those things you almost feel like it's ending, but then it restarts.
Yes, that's the nature of it.
And looking forwards then, like what's next for Einride? Where are you heading?
So we're in a kind of heavy growth phase. We're growing a lot, and especially in terms of customers and deployments. So we are definitely one of the largest electric freight operators, and we're growing a lot there. So we're getting the recognition from customers that we are the safe choice if you want to go electric, and definitely the fastest way to go electric as well. So that's a lot of the focus right now is making sure that we can scale and really maintain the level of quality, etc., that we have. So we kind of proven ourselves in a small scale, and now it's a lot about that scaling and proving that we can do it at larger scale. We're just deploying really large fleets, more or less as we speak. In March, we're deploying really large fleets. So it kind of a scaling and still, very important in terms of shaping that differentiators and making sure, as we scale, it's always that battle in product development of sort of supporting all of our customers as well as continue to build differentiation. So that is, I think, is what most companies go through, and of course we're not unique in that way. So, but I think we have a very clear vision, and hence will also be quite clear on the differentiators and continue to develop those.
And you touched again on balance there, and it's a theme I feel that runs through almost every episode I do, of balancing your internal focus, your external focus from a work perspective, and then adding in family and then time to go off and ski and eat and do other things. And I always like to understand how people do that, and it seems like you've been very successful in it. And normally for me, a good indicator of that is how happy someone is. you seem like a very happy person. And I think that's a good indicator that you are managing that balance, no matter how challenging it often feels on a day-to-day. So how do you go about it to make sure that you balance your time in the best way you can?
So I think it's a very good question, and I think it's something we all struggle with. And I do agree that I'm a happy person, but I would be lying if I always feel I have the balance. So I think it's one of those things. I think one of the important principles is that no one else can take responsibility for that. Your balance. There's only you that can feel, if your workload is too much or something, and taking that responsibility and listening to yourself and your body and your mental health is truly sort of what it all comes down to in the end. And understanding where you reload your batteries and what you get energy from. And I think, me personally, I'm very fortunate to have like a very good balance with my husband in terms of how we divide, getting the kids from daycare and school and these kind of things, where he works 80%. And sort of we have a very good constant or a continuous discussion around how we divide the work that we have within the family, etc. I also want to be very present, and I always block my calendar several hours every evening where I'm kind of remove my phone and I'm only with the kids and my family. And that's really, really important to me. And those are sacred hours. And then I reconnect when the kids are at bed. And also, really trying to take vacation and being able to sort of disconnect from work, even though, of course, me as most executives work a lot. I'm not going to lie about that. But once again, there has been times where I felt like I really can't take it anymore, and I just sort of went to our CEO and said, next week I'm going on vacation. And he was like, what? And I was like, I need this. And he didn't question that. And I just left with the family. And that I really needed. And to be able to identify that and see that and really act upon it, I think is super important, because it's different for all of us. And it's just one of those things that if you don't learn it, I think you risk hurting yourself. So staying true and listening to your body and your mental health, I think, is in the end of the day what's going to make it important. But I think in balance and being very transparent and having an open dialogue with your partner, I think for me has been fundamentally like a very important key to feeling happy, and sort of not feeling overstretched and is very, very important. So I think being sort of transparent internally and being able to have good communication both with your manager and your teams, as well as your partner and family, and being sort of humble about the challenges that's there, because it is a stretch for, I think, everyone that's want to combine career and family and having a healthy life. Not kind of oversimplifying, but staying true and discussing it, because it changes all the time as well.
And I think you mentioned there just having the support of in your case, the founder, but your boss, your manager, your co-workers, whoever it is around you, and being able to say that is really crucial as well. And I think something that I've noticed in speaking to you before and today, and I think our listeners will pick up on, you've got a great ability to know your strengths and to self-evaluate. And I think actually that's something a lot of people struggle with, and perhaps it comes with time and maturity, but it's something that actually I think allows you to have the biggest impact on other people's careers, is knowing what your strengths are and how you can use those to develop others. So how do you think that's played a part in your success in the last couple of years?
Oh, very good question. I do agree with you, what you say, that, being able to see your strength, and I think it's one of those things that I've, struggled a little bit being a woman and these kind of things, to actually like, I'm good at this, and feeling okay to even articulate it and feel confident about it. But I think it's been very useful, and something that has given me a lot of strength. I think when, of course, one of my passions and being a leader is sort of being a part of seeing someone else's success and development, and hopefully being a part of making that development even greater. That is definitely kind of one of the things that motivates me and makes me enjoy sort of leadership.
Well, that leads me perfectly into the last question, thinking about the careers of others. And I think something that I mentioned at the start, but it's very unique, is your career isn't linear. And actually, as someone that spends their life working with people on their next career move, yours has been, I would say, not very obvious in every case, which is great because it's given you those wonderful experiences. But what advice would you give to either your younger self or someone sitting there thinking, I think it's time for a change?
Yeah, so actually one career advice I got that has also been a part of me doing these choices that I've done was that the best opportunities will never be the most obvious and easy ones. So I think there's been a part of me that always have seeked this strange challenge, and the not the most obvious next step. And for example, when I had this phone call about the foundation, like I was like, this is so strange that I need to explore it, right? Instead of like, what, I have never worked with, education or reading or nonprofit, or like, it was like, this is super exciting. This is something completely different. And I think, also being through sort of consulting and I think I've worked on 25 projects during my 5 years, and every single one being very different. And every single project, I had butterflies in my stomach and feeling, oh, can I do this? And it was always a little bit too difficult. And it kind of became a drug, right? That, you want that challenge and excitement. And when you've actually come to the end of the project and it's like, I did this, like it worked. I learned a lot, and like the client loves me, and we did really good project, and the sort of satisfaction of that butterfly feeling and sort of being able to overcome it and do something good, it becomes this a drug. And I think feeling that very steep learning curve, then it is very natural to want to search for something where you're not in your comfort zone. And I think the more you're outside of your comfort zone, the more you learn. So I think to quite early in your career, dare to challenge yourself and get outside of your comfort zone, I think is definitely very rewarding. And I think before I joined Einride, being able to really kind of conclude, how do I combine the different things I've done, and how do I make the most value out of what I possess and also what I want to continue to learn. I think that comes from having tried a lot of different things, and sort of the excitement of doing so, and also feeling that I don't need to stay in the safe harbor of going to a big enterprise, knowing exactly what is expected of me, etc., but throwing myself out there because I know that the reward is bigger if I throw myself out. And I think, just looking back at these years for now at Einride, or kind of it's very clear that jump was very, very worthwhile, and taking that risk really paid off. And I did so knowing like it was an early startup, like, who knows if this is going to be and if this company exists a year from now. But I was willing to take that risk because I know, like, but if it, like, I'm still going to learn a lot, and if it does work, it's going to be super exciting, and I'm going to learn even more. So I think also, I think I was very risk averse earlier in my career, and sort of with feeling the strength of confidence, I think willing to take a bit more risk, and has sort of been something that's very rewarding and something that I clearly recommend to others as well.
I think it's safe to say it's paid off, and I think you're an amazing role model for many people out there who aren't quite sure what's next. And also, I think particularly a lot of women in engineering that sometimes feel like their path is a bit more challenging. So seeing people who have been brave and done it and been hugely successful is amazing for them as well. So thank you. And thank you for joining us today and sharing your story. It was brilliant. And yeah, we wish you every success and have no doubt I'll see you doing something obscure again in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the discussion a lot.